Welcome to the Acumatica ERP podcast, where we explore practical innovation for growing businesses. I'm your host, Lauren O'Hara. The Acumatica channel can often be viewed as having many partners competing against each other. However, partners have a shared understanding and the same end goal, and there's much that they can learn from one another. And that's the thought behind bringing these three partners on the podcast to share their experiences. Today, we're joined by Michael Pearson, Jason Sheaffer, and Paul Tedford.
Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hi, guys. Thanks for being here. Okay, so tell us who you are, your company, and how long you've been an Acumatica partner. Let's start with Jason.
I'm Jason Sheaffer, the CEO of Crestwood Associates. We've been an Acumatica partner for almost 15 years. We have clients probably in every industry, but kind of focus in on distribution, manufacturing, and construction. We do have a really unique aspect to our business, and that is we have our own in-house development. So many of our Acumatica clients who need an integration or a customization, they can turn to Crestwood, and we can do that all in-house. So that's probably one of our most unique aspects, if that makes sense. And I think I'll kick it to you, Paul. I think you're next in terms of the tenure.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks for having us on, Lauren. My name is Paul Tedford. I'm the CEO at WM Synergy. We've helped 2,000 manufacturing companies implement ERP and improve their business processes with over about 100 consultants on staff. About 3 years ago, we became an Acumatica partner. We work with the manufacturing, the distribution, and the construction edition. Our tagline is that our customers manufacture parts and we manufacture references.
Nice.
Hi, Lauren. My name's Michael Pearson. I'm the president and founder of Contax, and I'm sort of the new kid on the block. Although we've been selling and implementing and supporting ERP for almost about 30 years now. And over that time, we've worked on many hundreds of ERP implementations. But we only more recently became an Acumatica partner. In fact, less than 2 years ago, we signed up as an Acumatica partner. So we're still relatively new to Acumatica and to the community.
Very nice. All right. Thanks, fellows. I love it. Michael, you've been at Acumatica Summit in the audience as a new partner. And in 2024, you were on stage during the partner general session. So tell us a little bit about your experience there and as you ramped up your Acumatica practice during that first year.
And what an amazing experience it's been. In the span of about 12 months from being a brand new Acumatica partner, I was up there on stage with my colleagues, Paul and Jason, telling our story in front of thousands of people. So it was just quite a remarkable experience and really an amazing journey in such a short period of time. What really helped us be successful was making sure that we were focusing the right resources and the right effort and making sure that we're doing everything to enable our team to be successful in our first year. And that required obviously a lot of training and enablement. And then we had to focus on winning our first customer, which can be quite challenging if you're taking on a new ERP application. But we had great support all through the process from Acumatica, and it really made it feel like it was quite easy compared to what we thought it would be. And through the whole process, it felt like Acumatica was there with us at our side through every step of the process. And at no point were we doing it on our own.
I love that. I love to hear that. So what did you guys do to celebrate your first customer, your first Acumatica win?
We won another 4 after that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's a great way to drive it home, right?
That's right.
Paul, you've been in Michael's shoes and you're now a rapidly growing partner. So what are some lessons that you've learned, kind of similar to Michael's question? What are some of the lessons that you've learned growing your business up to this point?
Yeah, Michael, congrats on those wins. That's great. I think what Michael said is really where it starts, is having a strong team. I think it starts with the consultants. You have to have really good consultants and make sure your customers are happy and you can implement. And they're really in demand because of Acumatica's popularity. So you still need to treat them well and have a good culture and a good team. You have to have a good pre-sales group and a good sales group, obviously, to have those wins that Michael was talking about. And I think when we started in the ERP space maybe 20 years ago, it would take us 2 to 4 years to get a consultant that's billable. So what we've learned is that if you have somebody that's already trained on other ERP, Acumatica is so easy to use and friendly. you can get them up to and running and billable, and helping customers within 2 to 4 months. So it's not that 2 years. So that's one recommendation, for Michael. Some of the other things that we've done is worked on internships with college programs and brought them into the company as customer success managers or business development reps, and they can take a career path into consulting or sales.
I love the idea of the ease of use being also useful for a consultant's perspective too, That's
Right.
a really interesting way to, because, from a marketing perspective, and we have customers that love to talk about Acumatica's ease of use, but I'd love for you to maybe expand a little bit upon that advantage with the consultancy part.
Yeah, so a lot of the ERPs that are out there that our consultants learned on years ago are not the modern interface that you have with Acumatica, right? So if you've gone to college or grown up in the last 20, 30 years and just entered the job market, you've been using an iPhone or something similar, and Acumatica feels like that. So as long as you have your ERP understanding of MRP and work orders and the AR cycle, the AP cycle, etc., you can take those skills, move them over to Acumatica, learn some of the nice tools that are there. But it just feels like something that you're used to already. So that's really what makes the learning curve that much faster.
Love it.
Well, and I love that the usability, Acumatica always showed so well, right? And then they set out and said, hey, we're going to create the new UI.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I've appreciated about Acumatica over the years is they don't sit still. They said, no, we're going to update the framework. We're going to improve the UI. We're going to build AI into the foundation instead of just adding it as a little widget, which we see a lot of the competitors doing. So, as a publisher, having that leadership makes our job a lot easier because we have a product that shows well and it actually does what it says it's going to do. So it's not perfect, but I think that's one thing as I've looked at some of the publishers I've worked with in the past, Acumatica is still very, very concerned about the product and it's, improving it. So we're relevant. And I think others don't. So.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I think that's a great point. We have those biannual releases and it's not perfect, but nothing's perfect, right? And we're constantly working to iterate and make it better as to, and listen to our customers, right? So I'm glad to hear that from you. Okay, Jason, back to you. So how did you go from being the new Acumatica partner in the ecosystem to building and maintaining a substantial client base as a larger partner? Tell us a little bit more about that.
For us, it's consistency. The larger you get as a company, more consultants, more project managers, developers, salespeople, it's harder to have quality, consistent delivery. And so we look at that internally to make sure our processes are tight. I jokingly say you can't delegate thinking. We have to think, we have to be entrepreneurial and make sure that from marketing to support, things are working well and that we're collaborating and not sitting still. So there's this consistency factor. And then, Acumatica, it's a subscription-based service. And so we have to add customers and get that first sale and then, move to a year where we're selling 5 or 6 or then we're selling 20, right? We have to keep those customers and make sure that they're happy. If a customer is growing, so are we, because they're coming to Crestwood and saying, hey, we need to add a new business we just bought, or we just opened a new location, help us out. We have a very large client in the lighting industry and they're, the industry is consolidating. And so there's so much work that we get because they're leveraging Acumatica to grow their business. And that's super exciting. So, those are the stories that are most exciting to us and I think help us with the growth. But we look at the clients, we look at our NPS score, and making sure that we're always improving in that regard. And Acumatica measures us that way too. So we really set out a few years ago to intentionally build out our customer success team. And if we ever have a mistake, we have a real conversation about it and make sure we're improving off of that. And then I guess finally, I'll say being curious. We already talked about it a little bit, but if you sit still with Acumatica, you aren't relevant. With those 2 major releases that are coming out, those features and those capabilities need to be translated to the clients, and ultimately proving benefit. So, we've got to lean into what Acumatica is doing in the software and what they're doing with AI. And that's been a huge priority for me as a leader of Crestwood to ensure that we're doing that as an organization. I don't normally do demos anymore, but randomly we had an event where our solution architects weren't available. I'm getting ready for this all-day demo, and they have a lot of distribution, this prospect. So I'm learning DRP, and this is something I've never demoed, and I'm like, wow, like Acumatica has added things that I wanted so badly like 10 years ago with like forecasts and seasonality that works better. And so, it's exciting from that perspective to kind of learn about what Acumatica is doing and then applying it in the businesses of our clients.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Hey, Jason, when you were talking earlier, it made me think, I was wanting you to say a little bit more about how easy it is for a customer and for you guys to, and any of you guys can chime in, like to add an entity or add, to add on to the software as needed. Like that, I know that happens a lot, and that's a really great opportunity from a partner's perspective, but also a really great advantage from the customers too, right?
Yeah. Sure. I can start, and then Michael, Paul, please kind of fill in the gaps. What's great about Acumatica and this tenant company branch structure that Acumatica offers is I've had a client say, hey, how hard is it to add a company? I'm like, it takes 20 minutes. It's one screen, right? Put in the name, the address, the base currency, and you're off and running. And then when you go up into the navigation bar, you'll see that new company. And if you have intercompany and that's set up, those do to, do froms, those will happen. So adding a company is simple. It's not like you have to log in and out of a different tenant. You could do that if you had, a scenario where that was warranted, but it is very seamless and very quick to add companies, which of course nowadays with private equity and a lot of people investing into businesses, there's this kind of roll up or this portfolio concept. And I think Acumatica handles that really well.
Very nice.
We had one aerospace and defense manufacturer that started with us with one site. Now they have 6 or 7 sites. I think exactly how it is. But one of the things they love too is the unlimited user concept, where they get, even if they're across multiple companies, multiple entities, multiple sites, they're getting unlimited users. So, and everybody can use the software and all the new features that we've been talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and another OEM that we've worked with, certainly the software is capable of multi-company, multi-currency, multi-everything, but the overhead is significant, and the amount of time to set it up, you're talking weeks or months in some cases to do things that we can do in literally minutes and hours in Acumatica. So we really appreciate that.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. That's, it's so cool to hear, we, from marketing, I focus so much on what the customers and the prospects are seeing. So I love hearing you all say similar things that are so enthusiastic. So awesome. What are some of the growing pains that you've experienced, and how would you advise other partners who are looking at or are in an Acumatica practice already to kind of overcome those growing pains? Like, I think some of you have already touched a little bit on those, but maybe kind of flesh those out a little bit for me.
Well, one of the things that Jason mentioned was customer success manager. We never had one before we were with Acumatica, and Acumatica did the right thing and said, you really need to have one because they have a great customer bill of rights that allows for, 1-year contracts. And if you're on a 1-year contract, you need to make your customers very happy. Got to make sure they renew. I think Jason said the same thing. And Michael, we have a terminology that says we not only want you to go live on the ERP, we want you not to go dead, which means we want you to keep improving. So, every quarter, maybe keep that key stakeholder team and recommend your clients keep that key stakeholders that help with the original implementation to keep doing continuous improvement sprints once a quarter. And that allows you to use all some of the new features, the new AI, DRP, if you need to add that Jason mentioned. So that's one big thing, is having that customer success manager that allows you to make sure the company is happy, they get what they need. And when they want to do those sprints, that you have a team ready for them and help them with whatever they need to do to get there.
You said something there too, Paul, that struck me. with our clients, this kind of gets back to the previous question, but it is a part of our growing pains. Our clients are growing and changing, right? If we implemented somebody 5 years ago, like that worked, and generally if you do an implementation right, you have a little bit of a runway, right? But we've really had to challenge our employees and our consultants and our CSMs to say, like, let's meet with our clients and understand their business objectives. Where are they going? Like, do they plan to acquire companies? Because that should factor into how they're planning their year with Crestwood. There were times where we weren't doing that all that well. And so we said, no, we now our CSMs typically hold a QBR or quarterly business review with the client, and then that gives us a chance to step out of the day-to-day to say, okay, like as leaders here, like where are you going, from a business perspective? And we can talk about some of the great things that Acumatica is doing and what we're doing at Crestwood. So that was one thing that about a year and a half ago we started doing, and it has been helpful because, these clients are growing and changing, and we have to be on the pulse of that.
Right.
One of the challenges with being an ERP VAR is you need to be good at many different things all at the same time. You need to be able to find prospects. You need to be able to engage with customers, develop relationships, do pre-sales, do implementations, manage customer success all the way through. And I think the challenge sometimes is you tend to focus all of your efforts on the area that needs the most attention. So, we don't have enough leads in our funnel, so we divert attention to marketing. You can't take your eye off the ball on the other things. So you've got to be focused on all of these things at the same time. And if you don't do that, you get into a situation where I call it a lumpy business. So one area of the business is performing well, but the others are not. And I think the sign of a mature business, and that's a huge amount of respect to you guys, Paul and Jason, because you've obviously conquered this, getting to the stage you are at with your businesses. You need to be good at all of these things all the time and always be focusing on all of them rather than just diverting all of your attention to where is needed most at one specific point in time.
Well, it's a compliment, but we're not perfect, or I'm not perfect, that's for sure. Yeah. So we have some lumps. We have some lumps in the dough.
Well, but it's a very valid point that Michael makes, right? Like,
it is.
Being able to truly keep your eye on all of the balls and make sure everything's moving forward. Just because a customer's live doesn't mean you're done, right?
Right.
Very, very far from that, correct?
Right. Yeah.
I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit. So within the SaaS ecosystem that we're all in, not only have to sell more software, but you have to keep your client base happy. So, and this is very, very much part of what Michael just alluded to or talked about with the lumpiness, right? So can you speak a little bit more about how you balance those out, how you balance out all of the needs and all the lumps?
I think it starts with having a good team with you on your company, right? So somebody that's really focused on, sales and marketing and making sure sales and marketing are aligned. So you're focusing on the prospects, the marketing, the leads, as Michael and Jason mentioned. And then you have a good delivery leader that's focusing on making sure we're training up really good consultants. We also, and outside of consultants, you have developers, technical consultants, people that are learning those new AI tools. So those new things that have to happen. So you have that. And then you have the customer success managers that are checking in, pre-sales folks as well. So I think it really all starts with, really good people and making sure you have the direction of where you want to go. What's our goal? Which is, either references or growth or what have you.
Yeah. And clear delineation of responsibilities as well, knowing who's accountable for which area. It's great if your president can deliver an awesome sales demo. But, maybe that's not the president's primary focus and sole responsibility for managing that. There's somebody else in charge of it.
And I would echo what Paul said as well. It's about the people. When we hire somebody at Crestwood, we run through this get it, wants it capacity to do it. And essentially that is, do they fit our culture? Do they kind of come from the same mindset? Do they have the skills and the capacity to deliver? When we start looking through that lens, we find, that we're more successful. And to Michael's point, the CSM, like their job is to ensure that customer is getting what they need from Crestwood and from Acumatica. And if they're not, then we need to have that relationship and that communication So we actually understand that. And then if the functional consultant doesn't know, if they don't know the product and they're not current with the release, then they're not going to be able to deliver. So we do look at it within the various teams that we have to make sure that we have somebody who has a metric and they're accountable to it, and that if something isn't performing, we know we identify that, and then we know how to fix it through solving those issues. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it is a form of investment, certainly. And that, I think, for a smaller partner, maybe who has come out of maybe the perpetual world, if I can say it that way, it is a little bit of an investment. But if you do it right, the payoff is there. Look no further than Acumatica and in what they've done with Vista. I mean, it's so exciting to see the energy and the idea that Vista wants to keep Acumatica growing and taking it to the next level, which is awesome.
That's awesome. I love to hear that, Jason. We internally feel the same way, so it's super exciting. So this is a great segue to my question about the support that Acumatica provides to you all. Acumatica provides different opportunities for partners, right? We've got the marketing automation platform, PAMs or partner account managers, and of course there's the Acumatica community, and those are only just 3 of the many, right? So what advice would you give to other partners and even customers for how to make the most of those resources with your different departments? They're all going to utilize those resources in different ways. So I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
I can boil it down to 2 words. Use them.
That's yes.
So, yeah. I mean, that's a joke a little bit, but it's there's so much truth to it. At Crestwood, we have other publishers as well. So, there's a lot of balls we're keeping in the air. And Acumatica is investing in the partner channel. We need to take advantage of those tools, whether it's MAP or, you when you first asked the question, I'm like, well, the support, we go to Acumatica when we have a question or an issue, and there's the whole support portal, right? And so there's so much that we get from Acumatica, but it only comes to us if we use it. The education. That when the new UI came out, Acumatica launched this sort of new program from an education perspective, and we had 3 developers in it, and that was super helpful because we were able to, kind of see around the corner, if you will. So yeah, you've got to be there, and you've got to actually be available to use and consume the resources that Acumatica provides.
Yeah, and Acumatica makes it easy because the resources are provided to us for free. We're accustomed to dealing with software publishers who charge us for access to training. Which kind of seems a little bit illogical in a way. Shouldn't they want us to know the product better? We love the Acumatica training, the education, and we encourage everybody to sign up for it, get their certifications, and use it as much as possible.
And even in the sales cycle, we'll use our PAM, Andrew Barkin as our PAM. He'll jump on, help us close a deal, and help a customer see the value, or prospect see the value. But even Acumatica execs, John Case, Sanket, Sean, others will jump on a call with us, help us close those deals. And there's other resources outside, training. I think both Michael and Jason talked about in the badging, but there's other resources available like service partners that if you need more help there, as well as pre-sales partners that are available if you need, a leg up on getting a pre-sales resource trained.
All right. So what Jason said, use it, right? Use them.
Yes.
Use it or lose it.
I love it. So I'm going to wrap up with a lightning round. And I'm going to ask each of you a quick question and ask you to give me a quick, as quick as possible answer. Jason, what are the 2 trends that you see shaping the future of the ERP industry?
The 2 trends that are shaping the ERP industry, I would say, well, number one, it's got to be AI. We see it in our personal lives. We see it within our own businesses. AI is changing, the way the world is working. And I have appreciated Acumatica's approach. I think Sanket, the CRO of Acumatica, said this really well. When people go out to buy an ERP, number one, they need to know that the data is accurate, right? And that the system is going to be accurate and that the data is going to be secure.
Yes.
If you look at the hierarchy of needs, that's the foundation, right? And so I think as Acumatica built their AI first approach, they said, number one, we've got to accomplish these 2 things. And then from there, they said, well, there's these LLMs that are out there that people are using. And, we are going to embed those into Acumatica and allow people to continue to use those. So I think that approach is much better than what we see with others. They're just like bolting something on, like an agent here. Acumatica has said, we're going to allow you to have an advisor. We're going to allow you to have an assistant, or provide AI through automation, and it's much more comprehensive, and even give us like the AI studio, and so Crestwood can build our own AI modules, which we're launching here by the summit. So I think AI, especially with ERP and the way that data is structured, is shaping the industry today and into the future. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy with Acumatica and their position, knowing that the data will be secure and that people can build things that actually work and matter versus just marketing speak. No offense, Lauren.
None taken.
Yeah. And I'd say the second trend is industry trends. And I actually think Acumatica was way ahead here. We're seeing other publishers offer industry editions, right? And some of it is pure marketing. But Acumatica, if you look at their industry editions, like construction, they work, you look at, you could talk about Procore or Stack or, some of the ISVs that they've aligned with, but the functionality that they built into the product. So it's not just smoke and mirrors, but it's actually, whether you're a general contractor or, somebody who's, finishing out a house and you're doing the countertops and the appliances and the flooring, like there's capabilities in each of the industry editions. And I think other publishers are seeing that and kind of following. But whether it's the manufacturing edition or commerce retail or the professional services edition, Acumatica, I think identified that trend pretty early and is ahead of that. But it is certainly going to keep going forward because, businesses are specializing now to differentiate, and having like that industry capability is really important.
Yeah. And just being able to make sure that you make it clear that these editions are built for them, correct? Like that's so big.
Yeah. And it's not also separate software, which I think I've seen with others. It's this idea that, a business, as they're, really leaning into an industry and differentiating, they need the software to kind of speak their language. And I think Acumatica has done a good job with that and in the industry editions.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Jason. All right, Paul, what is the most common advice that you give a prospect or a customer on how they can stay agile as the, technology landscape evolves?
The biggest piece of advice I'd give is, it sounds like an old piece of advice nowadays because it's been 30 years, is I don't think the cloud is optional anymore. I think you have to move from perpetual or on-premise to the cloud. And I'll just give you one example. About 3 years ago or 2 years ago now, I was sitting with a FDA, a biotech company, and they got malware, right? Or ransomware. And I was sitting side by side with the FBI agents for, I think it was like 2 weeks in a row. And we try to, get the logs and the backups of the on-premise on, but we couldn't do it. So the FBI and we just said, hey, pay it because you need to get that data back. And they ended up paying like close to $500,000 to get that data back. That stuff doesn't happen in the cloud. So if you want to be agile, you need to have your data. You need to be able to use those AI tools. You need to be able to use BI, and you can't be concerned about that. And take that worry off your plate. Get the people managing your server to manage things like using that AI studio or building new, more powerful BI or building automated workflows, things of that nature. So I think that's the best way to be agile, is not to have a roadblock in front of you. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, absolutely. And to know that the cloud is secure, right? And so, kind of like what Jason was mentioning earlier.
Right. Well, and these attacks are getting so much more sophisticated. And this is why you can't have your server in the closet anymore, because as Paul referenced, like if they get your data and they lock you out, you're either paying them or they're selling your data on the black web. I think that's a good example, Paul, of like why it matters to be in the cloud, because it's not stopping.
Yeah, there was a recent CISA report from the government that said that the biggest area that biggest industries that people get targeted are distribution and manufacturing, because usually they're still more likely to be on-prem. They're not spending all the money on cybersecurity, and 80% of small to medium-sized manufacturing distributors were attempted to be hacked last year in 2024, and 40% of those were effective, and 50% of those 40% had ransomware over 100K. That was the last study I read from the CISO. It was crazy.
And you think about it, once they get your data, they can go to your customers and your vendors next, because like it's like it starts this chain, and there's this element of responsibility too. So I had not heard those stats though. That's
crazy.
Yeah, it's too bad that there's so many bad actors like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Okay, Michael, what is one strategy that you've used to foster collaboration with your team?
Probably give you several, Lauren, but you just asked for one, so I'll give you one.
Can you do it?
If I had to boil it down to one, I think alignment. We want everybody to be working together towards a common goal. And our common goal is to make sure that our customers are successful. So from the very first conversations we have with a prospect through to implementation of their ERP and beyond, through the whole life cycle, we need to be focused on everything we do is with the goal of helping our customers become more successful. And I really do believe that if we all work together towards that common goal, we'll achieve all of the outcomes that we set out to achieve. So it all comes down to alignment.
I love it. Nice job. We found one. Thank you, Jason, Paul, and Michael, for joining us and sharing your insights and experiences and advice and what it takes to really grow and thrive as an Acumatica partner. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. You guys are awesome. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into the Acumatica ERP podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations on practical innovation for growing businesses.